Joining me now are Newsmax foreign policy analyst and former Trump foreign policy advisor Walid Phares, along with senior research fellow for China and national security at the Heritage Foundation, Steve Yates. Walid, I'm going to start with you. How significant are these protests in Iran? How do they compare to past periods of instability?
Excellent question, Mercedes. Thank you for having me. This is the outcome of multi-decades attempts to change that regime and attain freedom. It started in 1999 with the student movement, 2009, where a former president, U.S. president, instead of siding with them, sided with the regime, which prompted this struggle to continue for another 2 decades, significantly in 2019, and of course the Masa Amini revolt that we reported about many times as of 2022. What is happening now, Mercedes, is that this wave is more organized, resilient, connected, I could argue for that matter, and also knows exactly what to do when they started to move against the police stations, against the centers of the militias. But obviously they are waging calls to the international community. It looks like our president very quickly issued that very powerful tweet yesterday and committed that if the regime is going to go the route of Assad or of the Taliban slaughtering their people, we will do something about it.
That's right. And Steve, exactly what Walid said here. The President Trump said that the U.S. could come to the rescue of protesters, but he also said the U.S. is locked and loaded. I got to ask you here. I mean, we know that President Trump, he, went after Iran and those nuclear facilities. He was very strong in how he delivered in destroying those nuclear facilities. Now he's sending a warning signal to the Iranian regime. Do you think the regime is listening?
I think they have to listen. I'm not entirely sure I know what locked and loaded means at this point, but I do think that it's extremely important that the United States at least find ways to support the communication and coordination and resiliency of the freedom movement inside Iran. That is the best path to regional peace and prosperity there could be if we're going to have peace and prosperity in the broader Middle East. And so I think it's inherently consistent with what the president was trying to do with the Abraham Accords, but also trying to make sure that there aren't malign influences that spill over. The worst example I think Walid was alluding to was the Obama administration. We had the Green Revolution, and we essentially let the regime use Chinese-like tactics to clamp down on social media and interaction. And hopefully at this point, at the very least, we can help them organize, communicate, and sustain what they're trying to do to pursue their own freedoms.
Walid, Steve brings up a good point in the sense of what the U.S. can do in supporting the protesters. Who else do you think is also supporting the protesters, and who's on the side of the regime?
Well, let me start by your conclusion. The most formidable weapon, which is not arms, that we have is our president. In one speech, like what Reagan has done with Gorbachev, Mr. President, tear down the wall. That was not just, these were not words. This was a policy change with regard to the Soviet Union at the time. So now the president has given us the tip of the iceberg. That tweet is very important. If he follows with an actual speech from the White House to the Iranian people, we don't need to be on the ground. 200 to 300,000 Iranians, mostly youth, and many dissidents from the Iranian army called Artech are on the ground. What they need, the Iranian people needs to hear the voice of the most powerful man in the world, which is Donald Trump at this point in time. And there are multiple ways to actually, because when Steve mentioned about, loaded and locked, etc., it could be many ways. It doesn't have to be Marines on the ground that the opposition is now trying to say, oh, we're going to go to another war. We're not going to any other war. We're ending this war.
People think news just happens. It doesn't. It happens because there's someone there to capture the moment, to explain it and share it. That's my job. I go where news breaks and give you the facts. Join me for The Record on Newsmax.